Old Faithful went in the ground in 2014. They still function and operate today.
That beauty right there is the whole reason for this video. That is the FLO Ultra.
We're one of the only manufacturers to make a ruggedized aluminum home charger.
Brooks is pulling a typical Hummer lifestyle move right here. Clogging up, icing the station at 100%.
To take that weight off of me, I'm still holding with one hand, and all of the weight is off.
Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. You join me in Canada. I am in Quebec City right now visiting our friends at FLO. And charger reliability is something we preach on this channel all the time. We want our viewers, we want EV drivers to have the best possible reliable EV charging experiences out in the wild and in some of the harshest conditions as well, because people live all over the planet. And there's no other company name that is as synonymous with reliability than FLO. FLO EV chargers are installed in some of the most harsh conditions you could imagine, and they just work. They've never been the fastest chargers, they've never been the most beautifully designed chargers, but they are some of the most reliable chargers. And if you look at some of the history, we've seen these stations around, the old 50 kilowatt reliable stations. However, the whole reason I came here to Canada is just over that away, there is a new high power DC fast charger, the FLO Ultra, that takes beautiful design, high speed charging, and the legendary reliability and puts it into one. Now, those are my words. I'm going to put it to the test. Time will tell. But I thought since we're also here, we're going to go on a deep dive of FLO. We're going to meet with some of the engineers. We're going to see their testing laboratories, some of the prototype interoperability labs. You guys love these deep dive charging videos. And well, this is going to be another one. So strap in, join me for a long video digging into FLO. Well, guys, we are on our way into FLO. That beauty right there is the whole reason for this video. That is the FLO Ultra, over 300 kilowatt charging power, very interesting form factor, lots of innovation with cable management and screens and what am I trying to say? Interactability? Interactiveness? That's probably the word. And also a bunch of AC chargers all around. In fact, this is their head office, and you can see there's AC chargers literally everywhere. So we have a new Equinox EV. It's like almost everyone here kind of drives an EV, which is so important from, and it's actually something I look for when I go to charging companies. I'm like, how many of these people actually drive electric? Because if you drive an EV, you will treat electric charging infrastructure as critical, mission critical infrastructure, where if it doesn't work, no one's getting around. And just look at this line of cars here on the right. There's a bunch of electric cars. They have their e-sprinters back there as their service vans. Absolutely love it. More charging down this way. And what we're going to do in this video is meet with product managers, engineers, and of course a deep dive on their new DC products. But it all starts with AC. So I'm going to have some of the folks from FLO walk us through some of the company history, where they stand in the market, if they're going for more of an owner-operator side where they sell the equipment and then you buy a service agreement, or they're going to own and operate the stations. I would like to learn some of this, and of course just also commend their commitment to reliability. And we'll actually be able to go inside of that building over there, which is their network operations center, where they essentially keep parts on hand. They have warehouses all over North America, but also where we get to see like the entire network on a screen, and they can predictively look at failure points and deploy fixes before anyone even gets there. An EV driver, I should say, gets there and has an issue. And I know they do this because I've run into FLO service personnel in New York City at their New York charging network that they built for all the level 2 charging around Manhattan and other boroughs. And they literally had a van with every part imaginable on there, and it was predictive analysis that had them go fix a charger. Someone called in, they said there was an issue, they didn't find the issue, then they noticed some weird charging stuff through the network operations center, and they're like, we'll actually just go replace that cable. And I was there firsthand seeing it, so I know that they're not just saying things, they're actually committed to it. And of course, as EV drivers, I'm sure we can all agree who have used FLO, they work. And that's been the most difficult thing on the planet, to make reliable charging. Somehow FLO has figured it out. So let's go figure out who are the people behind FLO and how the hell they make their chargers, because this is So cool, so exciting. Great to be in Quebec City, great to be in Canada, and I'm happy to bring this video to you. So join me for a deep dive into FLO. So you guys join me at FLO with Brooks and Nathan. Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey Kyle, great, how are you?
Thanks so much for having me here in Canada. This is so cool.
Yeah, thank you for coming out. We are here at our Canadian headquarters in beautiful Quebec City in Quebec. We are going to take you through basically everything FLO today. So we're really going to open up the doors. You're going to be seeing some of our first ever technology that we're releasing to the market this week, next week, and next year. So we're going to really open the doors. Nathan and myself will take you through primarily everything from start to finish, both on our network operations side, our hardware side. We'll go into the R&D labs, see how we research, see how we really spec, and then we'll take a look at the property. You'll see a number of EVs in the parking lot. You'll see all of our chargers. So we have everything running in full focus. So we're constantly testing and looking at the user experience.
Amazing. And I think maybe even before we go inside, I want to ask you a lot about the company's sort of business models, how you guys bring in money, if people can host their own FLO charging. But of course you have a whole portfolio of product line, and maybe you can help us kind of understand them really with these units over here. Now these are the ones I'm most familiar with.
Yeah.
And what exactly are they called, and what was is this the genesis of FLO? Is this where it all started?
This is where it all started. This is called the FLO Smart 2. So this is a level 2 charger, 32 amp, okay? So lower power on the AC side, but it's really important to understand how AC benefits compared to DC, right? So the Smart 2 being our first unit, most people don't know, but we actually started the company in 2009, and this unit went into the ground in 2011, and they still function today. So we have that long proof case of longevity and lifespan. The unique piece with Smart 2, everything that we do is really ruggedized, right? So it's super strong aluminum, right? And that lasts the test of time. Locking connector doors do things like keeping out freezing rain, snow. Being all for weather climate that we're designing for, we really want to make that unique advantage. So you've seen these in New York City. You did a review in New York City on the curbside of things. So that project really went through with New York City, Con Edison, and FLO to prove curbside charging in downtown cores to give people the capability to charge in public settings, but that might be living in a multi-residential building that can't have chargers underground. Right, so that's the history of Smart 2, and we'll get into it a little bit more as we go through more of the review, and I'll talk to you about some of the tech as well.
Now the cool thing is you of course make home EVSEs where someone can just install, but you also manage and run a network around. And so that's what I'm hoping to learn more about today. And maybe before we go inside, Nathan, can you explain sort of your responsibility inside of FLO?
Sure. Nathan Yang. I'm based out of Austin, Texas, but I primarily work here in Canada. We're headquartered in Quebec City, where we are today. My responsibility is product management, design, software and hardware engineering. So everything that you see here in terms of the hardware, the software, I have some wonderful engineers here in Quebec City, in Montreal, and the rest of North America to help build and engineer them.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And Brooks, your responsibility here?
Yeah, I'm Brooks Sheehan. I'm responsible for the Director of Site Acquisition. So on our own and operate side, which is pretty new to FLO and to the market. I've been with the company for 8 years. So I've seen the company grow from about 35 employees to over 500, 3 manufacturing areas now. So have been with the company really since kind of its old startup days. We still are very much startup focused. We love that culture, right? We're very unique in that way. We don't want to lose that aspect, no matter how big we get. So it's very important to us to keep that culture.
Well, one thing I'll say, just being around here, it's so cool how you guys have stood the test of time.
Yeah.
We've seen EV startups come and go. We've seen focus on just getting to the market first and skimping on reliability. Certainly that's not my impression of FLO, and I don't think the EV drivers that watch this video, it's their impression either. You guys have literally the best reliability that we've ever experienced, and so that's why I'm here to learn more about new stuff. So we're going to get into the DC Ultra, the big boy, later on in the video, but before that, Brooks and Nathan, maybe you guys can walk us through company business case. We can go inside the office, take a look at some of the actual physical space that you have, and learn more about FLO's workings.
Let's do it. Come on in.
Cool.
All right, Kyle, come on into the office. We're going into our front foyer now. Like I said, we have been around for 15 years, right? The company started by Louis Tremblay in 2009, actually during his university time. So Louis came up with the idea of, I want to help climate change, right? I want to help fight climate change. The first thing Louis did was he actually started designing a vehicle. and quickly realized, hey, why am I going to compete against the big guys? This stuff needs to be electrified, and I can electrify it so well. And because of an engineering background, utility background, telco background, this is really how the company shaped itself. Where that reliability comes in that you talked about, that FLO is so well known for, is really in our reliability. So the true test of time in the 15 years that we've been around, when we pretty much hit year 10, we took over this building, the office that you saw, and you'll see the parking lot as we go. We have a ton of chargers outside. We can electrify that entire parking lot for every employee that works in the organization. So we've got lots of power, right? We really have core values, and we really live to our core of Quebec, right? So you'll see a lot of stuff in French today, right? And we can translate this stuff, but really our values are about being collaborative, about being humble, about being adventurous, right? And this is partly where FLO kind of keeps its roots, really, in that entrepreneurial aspect of making sure we're helping the industry move along. So we partner with the competitors. We look at the industry as not having competitors, but having partners. The industry is still small enough that you need that growth and you need that camaraderie to work together to really build it out. Responsible for change, right? That really helps. And where we educate the market, a lot of people think DCFC is the most important thing. It's high power is what matters. And really, when you really peel back the onion layers, you realize that there's a very big use case and requirement for level 2 to not fully impact the grid. And there's a really big impact for usability and structure around DC fast charging. So right sizing the programs for the fit is really, really what we try to get across. So it's never deploy at mass, it's deploy at right time, and then think about the future to expand. Right? And that's really, really where FLO comes into our engagement with excellence, right? We are not afraid to be slow. We are not afraid to be first mover or not be first mover, right? We want to make sure that when we're releasing something, when we're servicing something, when we're providing network operations to the organizations that are investing in FLO hardware, that our network operations side really takes everything off of their plate. So it's really just FLO. We like to say we're the one throat to choke. Right? Yeah. We are the hardware manufacturer, we're the network operator, we're the servicer, we're the warranty piece, so you're not phoning multiple places or the finger pointing doesn't happen.
And that's part of the reason why we have hardware and software within the company. And we have a counterpart. So I'm chief product here, but I also have a network operations counterpart. And whenever the network operations has a problem, he picks up the phone and calls me, and I have to sort out what's the problem. And I have both the hardware and software team that we can troubleshoot it. So exactly to build on what Bruce was saying, being vertically integrated like that really helps us deliver that uptime, that great experience.
Yeah, and even just the simple fact of you guys are all in the same rough time zone area. You don't have someone super far overseas where there's at least a one-day turnaround. You can call someone and get them the same day.
And notice our conference rooms are named the different cities in Canada. The reason why we're in Quebec, that I'm not sure your viewers may or may not know, but we have some of the highest adoption of EVs in North America. I think last month or last quarter in California, 21% of new vehicles sold were EVs. Here in Quebec was 25%, so a quarter of all vehicles sold are electric. And also, as you may or may not know, the hydroelectric power is what powers Quebec. So a very sustainable source of energy. We even export energy to the Northeast, to New York and other states. So for those of viewers based out of the Northeast in the United States, maybe your power comes from Quebec, Canada. So it's a really great place to start a more sustainable form of transportation. That's where Louis started his company, and that's why we're based here in Quebec City.
So we talked about the first level 2 public charger going into the ground in 2011, right? The first DC fast charger that we did went in the ground in 2014. So really FLO, unknowingly to the market primarily, is FLO was one of the very first companies to release a DC fast charger, which is a 50 kilowatt charger. I like to call it Old Faithful. It's FLO Smart DC. It always works, right? Looks like a fridge, so it might not look so pretty, but the thing works every time. And that's really what we always transfer over to the drivers and to the network operators that we're working with. In 2017 came FLO Home. And one of our DNA pieces is, again, that rugged side, right? Because we're building in Quebec and Canada especially, true 4-season weather environments, we're one of the only manufacturers to make a ruggedized aluminum home charger, right? You may have just seen our announcement and our release of the new FLO Home X series, right? X8 going up to 80 amp, which we'll look at. Those are also ruggedized aluminum, but over 50% of these get installed outdoors. So a lot of people think they always get installed in garages, but with the outdoor environments and over 50% of these getting installed typically on people's brick walls or siding walls, this is going to stand the test of time from that snow, from that rain, that true kind of four-season environment. It doesn't degrade from a coloring perspective in the sun. So all of that DNA completely comes over and transfers over into our residential side as well.
Yeah,
so,
we're also not the cheapest residential charger out there, and we know that. And you'll see the new price. We're bringing the price down so that it's more accessible to more of your viewers. But the way that we test it is exactly the same as our commercial chargers. So we see those rugged commercial chargers in the streets in New York City that Kyle, you charged at, or in LA. We test them literally with the same standards and with the same frequency. We cycle them. You'll see as we go through a tour in the labs, the things that we do. And we've been getting tremendous good feedback, right? Customers use 5-10 years. No problem, still running. And so we're very proud of that, and we'll continue pushing that as long as we can, keeping that level of standard and quality.
You know, that's the one thing I have to commend you guys on. It keeps coming back to reliability, but we see a lot of new entrants into this space from all around the world, also American or Canadian startups. And, you know, everyone has reliability somewhere in their names, but you're one of the very few who have been around long enough to prove, yeah, your stuff works for a long time. And most impressively, to me at least, is the DC stuff. The old faithful, like you called it, the fact that you have them running in Fairbanks, Alaska, and they're still just chugging along just fine. That's crazy.
Why don't we go upstairs? We'll head upstairs and we'll show you the growth of the output of the network, and then we'll come back down and we'll go through our R&D facility and really kind of open up the covers. I think that your viewers are really going to enjoy seeing a lot of the tech to flow.
Yeah, we love the nerd stuff. So let's go upstairs. Thanks, guys.
Hi, everybody. We're on the third floor of our offices, and we actually just renovated this right after COVID. We wanted to bring employees into the company, into the workplace post-COVID. And so we try to create the most creative, comfortable environment that we could for our employees. So we have a little coffee machine, of course, lockers. These things are amazing. They're like bulletproof in terms of sound. You can yell in there and you can't hear anything outside. And then maybe we can come into this room over here where we have the map.
Nice.
Of what we have. So for the viewers out there, we're currently in Quebec City, which is right here. And the blue are our two factories. So we have factory in Shawinigan in Quebec, and then we have another one in Detroit, Michigan. And for those of you who may or may not know, as part of the NEVI program, there are requirements in terms of where they're manufactured and percentage of US content. And so we're able to produce the FLO Ultra, for example, out of our factory in Auburn Hills, Michigan, and ship it everywhere. It's a great location. It's close to our suppliers. It's metal. It's shipping. And so this is why we have our facilities there.
Big piece too is with the R&D with the OEMs, right? Almost every OEM is in Detroit. So every time a new OEM is shipping out new cars, usually 6 to 8 months before that hits the pavement, we are scrutinizing it, testing it in both facilities, both downstairs, which we'll go into, and in Detroit, to make sure the interoperability is working, to make sure the communications metrics work. So we are really, really deeply scrutinizing. And then we also have hardware, like in Europe even, right, with our OEM partnerships that are testing, so we can test again that interoperability and a lot of the roaming side of things too. Like Nathan was saying, all of these points are key points of area interest for either FLO chargers or also partnerships on the roaming agreements, right? So we really like to feature our overall partnerships like New York City that we mentioned downstairs, right, when we were coming in, Kyle, for the curbside charging program. And then the most northern DCFC up in Alaska, right? This is probably one of the coolest things, is really proving that four-season environment in super, super cold weather and a heck of a lot of snow.
Yeah,
right?
I've been to that station and it can get pretty wild. I saw some photos of it just buried and stuff. It's wild.
Yeah, and then we'll see the ventilation is so key for DC chargers. People don't think air intake, air exhaust, and all that. And then the FLO app, if you go to the App Store, there's the FLO app. You can see not only your residential charger, but also all the other chargers. We have roaming agreements with ChargePoint, with Shell Recharge, with a bunch of different players. And what's unique about it is we've learned from the old cell phone days where you had to pay roaming fees to be able to use different networks. And so a bunch of us, including ChargePoint, we're competitors, but we're also very much partners. We work together. And so ChargePoint customers can charge on our chargers, just like our EV drivers with the FLO app can charge on a ChargePoint charger. And there's no roaming fees, so you're not paying anything extra.
And that was one of the very first roaming agreements in North America America. In Europe, it's a little bit more common, but here to see you guys do that all those years ago was amazing, because I think the last thing EV drivers want are like 50 apps on their phone. We just want kind of one or two that does everything. And by you guys agreeing, it really helps a lot.
And the important thing is not pay more, right? If you have one app to do everything, you have to pay more. It's kind of...
We were building out roaming agreements really since 2014, Kyle. So we really, I believe, were the first mover in North America to kind of create that concept. And then the partnership with ChargePoint really showed it from two competitive ends that people feel as network providers were competitors. But that's where the whole partnership game in this industry has to come from, right? Everybody has to be willing to work together. This is a pretty big industry, right? Considering it's still pretty small. So there's lots of pieces for everybody to take advantage of. But the ultimate piece for us is thinking about the EV driver, what's easiest for the EV driver, what's easiest for the experience, because that's going to help adoption, which getting more EVs on the road is going to help fight climate change, which is really our biggest mission and vision in the organization. Absolutely. Another key piece to point out just before we kind of leave this room is you'll see kind of size differences, right? Between. So what the size differences mean is typically where we have the largest scale of chargers, but also where we have localized teams. So we have an office here, we have an office in Los Angeles, Quebec, of course, New York City, Detroit, and a couple in Toronto. The reason why we're focusing and showcasing this on the wall is this is where we also have our own service techs. So when we say we roll trucks, we are not necessarily rolling partners. We are rolling out our own service techs that are FLO team members with FLO fully stocked trucks. That's part of our secret sauce to how we get the uptime and the reliability.
I mean, so many times I've been to charging stations where I see a general electrical contractor who is seeing a unit for the first time or the second time. They have no idea what's going on. They don't want to take the time to do like an online training or read the manual, because it's hard to bill for a lot of that training time, versus you guys having your own trained. And I think it was Ron that I met in New York City and a couple of the other guys. And they're like FLO employees in FLO trucks fixing FLO chargers.
Yeah, we're going to meet the director for the whole team a little bit later on, Kyle.
Oh, cool.
We'll meet them together, and you'll get a chance to ask all your questions and nerd out with them as well.
Yeah, great. Good stuff.
That piece is important though too, right? With having our own techs. It's not that we don't want to work with electrical contractors, because we rely on electrical contractors every day to sell our units on our traditional business and to install them, and also to service them in our full key markets. What the employees and the team members here do is every day we have a scrum that says, hey, what did you see in the field that maybe we didn't see from the hundreds of sensors that we have in the charging stations? So we can communicate that back to R&D and manufacturing and instantly change things, and then cascade that education back down to contractors who are installing, right? So we really look at that 360 ecosystem to make sure that everything from end to end is covered.
So out of all of these offices, you guys also mentioned to me briefly, hey, FLO's growing. So what's the situation there? Because I know a lot of our viewers may not be in the EV industry. A lot of them, of course, are. And just my impression, like, this is an awesome place to work. You've got, like, you know, just a cool environment and also really cool people, a great culture. I don't say this very often about many EV charging companies, where a lot of them are very sterile, very business-like. This is cool. What's the situation on if our viewers wanted to work with you guys?
We had job postings posted all the time. So FLO.com or FLO.ca. Just go on that website, go into careers, and you can see all the job postings. We hire nonstop, and we hire a very diverse set of skill set. Because we're vertically integrated, for example, I have user researchers, designers, product managers, mechanical engineers, CAD technicians, electrical technicians and engineers. So we have a whole breadth of positions just in the product development organization. And then we have sales, we have network operations, we have marketing. So check out our website. We're based out of Quebec City, but we have team players all over the world and employees all over the world. So just reach out, primarily North America, especially. If you're looking for an opportunity, go on the website and then reach out.
FLO.com, FLO.com. Yeah, let's walk through the office and we'll show you kind of the uniqueness to it. As Nathan said before, we reconfigured everything since COVID. So you'll even see the living wall, right, Kyle? So we've incorporated like outside elements inside. That is a full living wall. Again, again, it helps with air circulation, helps with employee productivity and team member generation. But part of it was during COVID, we wanted to bring people back into the office, right? And we wanted people to feel comfortable. So we really improved overall air quality, lighting quality. We have over 200 employees in this office, over 500 in North America. So during COVID, we added over 200 people. Right, which is unique, right, for COVID, because COVID kind of stopped the growth. But what we wanted to do was infuse like that kind of, again, startup culture and never lose that side of things, because it's so really important to FLO and ingrained in that as, hey, we're a smaller company. We like to be that smaller company. We find it's easier to deal with us, right? We get a lot of feedback from our customers on that way. It also is a great benefit to show how much team members care and how they want to go the extra mile for the customer, right? Yep. We have less than 0.5% churn on our customer base.
Wow.
From an EV driver perspective and from a customer perspective. So we have two unique business models, right? Our primary business model is selling our hardware, which is branded as FLO, network operations, service, which counts into reliability, and overall warranty. So that one throat to choke kind of segment setting of selling chargers, which align into a lot of different municipal funding programs that site hosts can buy into, the NEVI program, right, that we're seeing a lot of fuel retailers adopt and incorporate. And then we also have our own and operate side of things, which is FLO will come in and own the hardware, we will deploy, and that site host will become a tenant of theirs, right? Where we're providing the amenity at no cost to them. We're taking on that cost, and that's part of the $235 million that Canada Infrastructure Bank invested in FLO as a loan to FLO to be able to deploy out over 2,500 FLO Ultras that we'll see, and which is a primary reason why you came to see us today, because it's the new high power big boy charger, right, from FLO, but that will also go across Canada to again enhance the EV driver network, and that's going to be happening over the next 4 years for site hosts. So we have two really unique business models. Part of that came into be from you have to be patient to adopt different business models, right? The model that made most sense back in 2017 to now was selling, running a reliable network, getting people on board, and now it's kind of a cross between both, right? For every one that somebody invests in, maybe FLO invests two, right? At the same place to help with that expansion. It really just helps with that overall camaraderie.
Yeah, so you're a bit of a CPO, you're a bit of a hardware seller, you're a bit of a network manager.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest risk that we've actually seen happen is when you sell a unit that the support just dies.
Yep.
And then there's, stranded assets everywhere.
Yep.
I've not actually seen that with FLO yet. How do you make sure that the units that are being purchased and managed third party are staying alive for years?
It's an interesting piece that you bring up, and your biggest problem, I would say, would be especially in DCFC. Right, for that. So FLO has been very, very careful in who we sell the product to. Our DCFCs, we will not sell a fast charger without selling an extended warranty. Why we do that is not to make extra money, it's to know how engaged and invested the owner-operator is going to be into that piece. We are of the opinion that DC fast charging, it's a massive amount of power. It's pulling more power than 5 single-family homes do in a month for a Tesla, for a single charge of an hour, right? It needs TLC, it needs love and care. Right? It needs to be invested in time for torquing down the lugs even that the power is connecting into. People don't realize how much vibration is happening from a vehicle going across the road where it can start loosening things off. So that piece really helps us understand if they're not willing to buy warranty, there's probably a risk. So we're also willing to walk away from certain deals, no matter how big they are.
That's cool.
And that's partly from our patience aspect and patience element. I think also what's more unique about FLO is we're not buying into every vertical in the EV segment. We are known for public charging, for workplace charging, and for home charging. We're not doing bus charging over air. We're not doing the big massive megawatt chargers for the trucks. We're not looking to stretch ourselves too thin, biting off more than we can chew, because that's where this market is going through this influx of what you're seeing in the industry, right? With companies going bankrupt, companies struggling. They're just biting off more than they can chew. We know what we're experts in and we're staying in those.
Yeah, and then you heard Brooks talk a little bit earlier that There's a couple of people internally. Actually, maybe you didn't bring it up, so I'll bring it up right now. A lot of our employees are ex-telecom, telecommunication employees. So I came from Polycom. My network operations comes from deploying cell towers and operating cell networks. You'll meet the director of network. He comes from telecommunication too. And part of this area is actually a technology park. So there's a lot of, for example, innovation in fiber optic telecommunication that happened out of Quebec City. And so there's a research center right across the street over here. And that's why we're based here. There's a lot of technology, technical talent with this deep-rooted sort of DNA and reliability. And so here we're able to recruit people. We just had a happy hour. We had the beer tap on last night for all the mechanical guys. So the location is very much part of the telecommunication background, bringing that expertise, the 5.9 uptime as part of our DNA. And we always have suppliers, and we'll go down to the lab next, outdoors, see the unit, and then go to the labs. But our suppliers always, it's a love-hate relationship with our suppliers. I jokingly say that. But that they say, like, why do you need it to run -45? Why do you need 10 years MTBF, mean time before failure? So why do you need it to last so long? Yes, we're a little bit hard on our suppliers, but then customers are happy. We're able to pay our suppliers a little bit more for that value too, and our customers are happy too, because they last a long time. So the total cost of ownership ultimately comes down. And it's a big change from even my past jobs as a product manager or product leader, where you have planned obsolescence, right? Built into the product, which is we all live with our phones, anything that has batteries, headphones only last a certain amount of time. And so it's really refreshing to work for FLO, a company that values long-term. We try to build our products for the last 8, 10 plus years. And even the first units, like Bruce was saying at the opening, they still run our first units that we've deployed.
Well, amazing, guys. That's super cool. I think, from my perspective, just having stranded chargers that are no longer working is maybe the worst thing you could possibly see, because there's so much investment and cost that goes into getting them there. And I'm just happy to see you guys committed to making sure stuff stays on.
And part of that benefit too is our investor side, right? FLO is a private company. We're not public, so we don't have that real kind of timing of meeting the street goals, right? Our investors are on for the long haul. The Quebec government is very, very supportive of this new kind of startup culture and the incubator side of things. So everything is just really fitting into place really, really well and nicely. All of our investors, again, like I said, are on for the long haul in the long term. So they understand what we're going through from a design perspective. We got a couple things here that you can come back on. These things? Not just yet, but probably in like 6 months you can come back and we can kind of uncover those. That's probably the only covers that we're not taking off today. But the other ones we will.
Great.
Let's head outside and check out the chargers outside.
That'd be amazing. Let's do it. Well, you need a big boy electric vehicle to charge off of a big boy charger. Holy smokes, this is awesome. Brooks, nice Hummer, by the way.
Thank you.
This thing is so sick. Are you enjoying it?
I love it. I love it. I really primarily bought it to be able to showcase this thing, right? Other than being a big guy and having a big family, I love the size. I travel a lot. I've got over 20,000 kilometers on it in right around 5 months. But really, it was massive battery, right? Can pull up to 320 kilowatts of power, maybe even a little bit more. And I did it because we have this now. This is FLO Ultra, and FLO Ultra outputs at 320 kilowatts. And we've created it really around ease of use, aligning with NEVI requirements. So if you're familiar with NEVI, you need 4 ports, right? So when we have 2 side by side, that's an extra 320 kilowatts that we have to use. So we can actually share the power and deliver up to 480 kilowatts into one connector.
Dang, so he's going to DC link them.
So there's 4 ports. We can direct all the power in one port and reach that power, level of power.
Holy smokes. So this is really kind of a distributed DC system, but without big cabinets behind anywhere.
Everything is integrated into the unit,
and,
right?
The form factor is so unique. I've never seen a DC charger looking like this that sort of, fits perfectly in between 2 spaces. But to me, it makes so much sense. You have this huge airflow path. I'm sure we'll be able to open it up earlier, but you've just got room. Not everything's tucked into one little tiny space. How much of the form factor drove, I guess, did reliability drive the form factor? Or
it's a combination of everything. We did a lot of iterations. We had underground versions, vertical versions, slim versions, square versions with a hole in the middle. We did all sorts of different designs, and we'll bring Vincent, our lead design director, on the video here shortly. But we try to factor everything in, trying to balance reliability, trying to balance usability. We surveyed a lot of different users with all the existing chargers out there, and the biggest feedback they came up with was that it was intimidating. It was scary. A lot of people who identify as women passed that comment, but it was the case universally. And another one was ease of use. Cables were difficult. It was hard to twist the handle because the cables are not flexible at all. This lack of safety, sometimes they're tucked into a corner of a lot, as you know, it's dark, and so they didn't want to stay attached until late. And then you reviewed a lot of EVs, right?
Yep.
Charge ports is a crapshoot where it's located.
Totally.
Front, back, corner, and different things. And the cable had to reach. And so this is illogical to say, this one is right in front of the middle of this spot, this one is right in front of the middle of the other spot. Motorized cable management, which we'll show you in a little bit, lighting to illuminate the area, and that green bar that you see on top, it even shows the progress of charging. So as it's charging, it progresses. So if you're munching, you don't have to even pull your phone. You can just look at the top of and it'll tell you if it's almost done.
That's awesome.
Big travel season, you had some videos where people were lining up and queuing. Well, now you can say, oh, I'm going to queue up behind this charger because I can see it's almost done, right? So you're lining up the right one.
Which, typical, gotta live the EV lifestyle, charge to 100 all the time.
That's it.
Anyway.
Please don't do that.
Yeah, please don't charge to 100 all the time. So the cable management seems to be like the #1 user differentiator between anyone else. Now, Brooks, I noticed you parked pretty far away here, probably
purposely
to show
did that.
the cable.
Yeah, that's one of the primary complaints with high power fast charging is that the cables are too short, right? From the liquid cooled that's required in them. We didn't want that. Everything that we've ever done, we want to make sure that if you like to pull in, if you like to back in, no matter how, we want it to reach, right? You saw that in New York, Kyle, with the really high, 12-foot high level 2 unit.
Yes.
That's to ensure that no matter where the charge port is on the vehicle, that it's custom set and it's going to work for that vehicle.
And that was the first complaint, is that they're too short. But if you made the cables very long, what happens?
Get too heavy.
Yep.
So part of the reason for the motorization is it takes the weight of the cable off, and the motorization is automatic. So it feels when I'm pulling, and it will actually activate and continue to take the weight down. I'm doing this with one hand.
Yeah, you're barely
18-foot
pulling
cable.
on it too. It's
so effortless, right? Because it's testing everything. And we're going to uncover this in the R&D facility, Kyle, so you'll be able to see it.
Cool.
But it is totally feeling the weight of the vehicle. It's totally feeling what I am doing. When I plug into the vehicle, and then when you'll see when we unplug, the actual cable management engages again and pulls back to take the weight back.
Right, so once we're done charging, it'll suck this thing right back
That's
in. Which is
exactly.
really cool.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, and we'll see when we do the screenshot, you'll see there's even a load cell into this cable management system. So if it's retracting and the user, it tangles on something, or the user tugs at it, it will automatically stop. It knows, hey, I'm maybe causing something bad here, I'm gonna stop. So we try to put also a lot of safety measures in place in this cable management system to keep your assets safe, because don't forget, for the viewers, you're connecting likely two very expensive assets, either your home to the EV or an expensive charger to your EV, and so you don't want to damage anything, so that's why we have all the sensors in this charger. I forgot to mention.
Payment authorized, sorry, I just seeing
Yep.
what's going on here.
So we're going to connect into the vehicle.
Yeah.
It's doing its charge test. It's doing its activations. I wonder if the vehicle went to
Hummer
sleep.
went to sleep, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Come on,
sorry to interrupt that.
Yeah, another thing, I mentioned there are sensors on top with the cable management system, so that we don't injure anybody or damage anything. So everything's purposely fully designed. We also have over 250 sensors in this charger. Costs more money to put sensors in, but we can predict with over 90% accuracy, let's say within a 3 to 6 months window, we think of something that might fail in the future.
Yeah.
And so this helps predict future failures, so we can do preventive maintenance, but also it helps us engineer this product better. So you'll see over time, when we identify things that may not work as well, we'll have all the data, and we can then further improve the product so it can last even longer, right? We already designed these things to last 8, 10 plus years, but all that data is purposeful so we can predict failures and improve the product.
Amazing. And I just heard the charging started right there, so epic. And now we're charging on it for the first time. My first go at charging on the FLO Ultra. So let's see how it goes. Ramping hardcore now. 180 kilowatts, 200 plus kilowatts right there. 230, 270, 280, 300 plus kilowatts. Hell yeah, Hummer lifestyle right there.
That's it.
Absolutely boogieing. Love that.
Yeah, so the Ultra will output 320 kilowatts in one cable. Right now, a couple of our test units that are in the field, one in Pickering with our partner Canadian Tire, we have it set at 160 per bay. Again, part of that feedback from DC fast charging customers or people that haven't adopted EVs yet is most chargers have one screen, right? So if one car is plugged in, they're not sure if they can take advantage of that other cable. This is why we've separated the user experience and interface to help kind of solve that question and equation of can I charge or can I not? Do I have to wait?
Well, guys, we've been charging for a little while on the DC charger here, and we've been ripping over 200 kilowatts since we plugged in. We're
still 205.
We're up to 46% now, and it's still doing over 200 kilowatts. So shout out to GM for making a fast charging
That's
EV.
it.
Love
It's
to see
been great. Yeah. So Kyle, you saw how I activated the charging session with our RFID card. RFID cards, we still really recommend. They help with a lot of things. Let's say cell phone infrastructure is down for some reason. You can still activate the chargers with an RFID card. So road warriors driving far, this is like one of your most reliable pieces to have in your car.
Totally.
We also support Apple Pay, Google Pay, Visa, MasterCard. Because of the credit card readers, we're assessing a number of credit card readers right now, right? In the industry, there's a really big change from credit card activation. What we've seen in the early days is very unreliable activation through credit card, which is why we're really one of the last network operators to integrate a credit card reader on our chargers, because it just didn't meet that minimum 98% uptime that we stress on all of the product. So we do have that now. Of course, it's an EVI requirement. It's a lot of government funding requirements that you have to support. So we have that integrated on all of our DC product right now. Even our 50 kilowatt Smart DC has it, which I call Old Faithful.
Yep.
I'm going to stop the session now. And what I'm going to stop is, we're stopping the session, but I really want to show again FLO Ultra with Easy Lift, right? Easy Lift is the cable management system. When I unplug, again, we are wanting to remove the weight of the connector in the cable, right? So this instantly engaged to take that weight off of me. I'm still holding with one hand and all of the weight is off. That is a huge unique advantage to FLO Ultra, having an 18-foot cable, being able to park wherever you are, and matching any type of EV driver. So in many of our instances from a deployment side, whether it's on our traditional side or on our own and operate side, we will especially have parking spaces that are ADA accessible, right? And all of that is really unique in our testing that Vince is going to talk about inside on how we created Ultra and how we created Easy Lift.
All right, and then maybe the last point before we go into the lab and we talk about design and engineering, it's very important for those of viewers that are product managers, engineers, designers, to have a really good working relationship between the designer and the engineer. They probably sometimes don't love each other because the designers will design something that is hard to engineer, and the engineer will put some requirements saying, no, it has to be reliable, so it has to be this big, right? It cannot be that small. But so that relationship is really important, and we strive for that. And let's go inside and we can check it out.
We are now going into the FLO engineering center, if you will. We're going to go through a lot of the FLO Ultra design phase, the engineering behind it. Such a cool laboratory. But we're actually on our way to go meet with Vincent, who's responsible for the design of the FLO Ultra. So welcome to the channel. Thanks for taking the time. This is the cool secret lab stuff that we love to see. So thanks for opening the doors.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to start off with, maybe introduce you to Vincent.
Hi, I'm Vincent Lévesque. I'm in charge of the design at FLO. So we're designing our own hardware, and our own application, and we're designing product for home and product for public charging. So my crew and I are in charge of that design as well as user research.
So all the mobile apps that you use, all the chargers that you use, he's leading the industrial design team, the UX and user research teams that have designed it. So earlier when we were outside, we were talking about reliability, right? So the first foundational thing is that your product has to be functional. You have to be able to charge a car. But then after that, the second thing is to be reliable, right? And we view it kind of like a Maslow pyramid of needs, almost so to speak. And so we relentlessly try to make sure that at least it is reliable. Over the last decade plus, we have 15 years of experience doing it. And now you're starting to see us focus on usability, right? We want to make things, the cables are heavy, maybe it doesn't feel as safe. And then we want to keep pushing up things like convenience. and maybe make it meaningful, right? So some people ask, why didn't you put a touchscreen early on? Why didn't you do certain things? We wanted to at least nail that reliability. And you're going to seeing us with the FLO Ultra, you just saw outside, really pushing the envelope to make it more usable, and you're going to see FLO continuing to push that. And really Vincent and his team has been on this journey to make that happen. And then I'll let Vincent maybe touch a little bit on design philosophy and for the
So the thing that I think is interesting about here at FLO is that we have our internal design team. So it's not consultants that are coming in, doing the design and then moving to some other industries or whatnot. So we've built a team throughout the last 4 or 5 years. It's a team of, as we said, industrial designers who are designing the actual physical product. We have a team of UX designers who are building the digital experience. So the experience you're seeing on the GUI or the experience you're seeing on the app, it's all internal. But the thing that I feel is distinguishing us the most is the fact that we have a user research team. So the Ultra that you're seeing and other products that you will see, it's the results of many different research activities that we had with actual real clients who have experience or not the joys of charging in the wintertime or in the summertime when there's bees swirling around. So, but we have a panel of 1,000 of users. Those people are integrated in the design phases and the development phase throughout the development. So even before we started sketching about on Ultra and other products, we have users that are being interviewed. We're checking how they behave around the chargers, and that led to many design decisions that we've took upon the journey that was the design of Ultra.
So it's really unique, of course. We're very lucky that we get to meet with a lot of car designers, a lot of designers from different industries. I don't think I've ever met a DC fast charger designer.
So that's a first.
It's a first, and it shows because most DC chargers are like the very early FLO chargers. It's just a box, and they're pretty ugly, and they get the job done. And there maybe is some beauty in the industrial simplicity of it. But this is so unique, where it really gathered a lot of different opinion, and that's what sort of the beauty of design is. Is okay, you can make it look the way you guys intend it to look, but it's got to work for everyone. So I think what would be really cool is maybe if you could just roughly explain. This can be laid out in 2 different configurations, right?
Absolutely, yes. So that's the fruit of the research we did. So we have that configuration where both connectors are in front. So this way, when cars are doing perpendicular parking, so it's very normal. It's very run of the mill, if I may say so. Brooks was explaining also that the height played a role. So one of the first design decisions that we took was to go to an horizontal shape instead of a vertical shape. Why? It's because when we were doing research with many clients, many EV drivers, many of them were women, and some of them, and even men, were mentioning to us that it's kind of scary at night to be in the middle of a Walmart parking lot with no lights around and no one around, and you're sitting in your car. I remember a research we did, and there was that woman was saying to us that at some point she needed to charge, and she was with her kids, and she was in the parking lot of a Walmart in west of Canada, and the charging session lasts for 2 hours, and she was really stressed for her own safety. Nothing happened, thank God, but that's the kind of feedback that went into us adopting an horizontal view. As Brooks said earlier, the line of sight is much more open when we're doing that kind of design. Furthermore, when a parking operator is laying out his parking space, that is making it optimal for them. So the width of the unit is usually the grass area that you have between parking, that fits perfectly in it. So that's one of the other things. We've put the 2 connectors in front, but there's also, as you asked earlier, there's a configuration where there's the GUI on one side, and on the other side, the GUI would be like opposite.
So you would basically put this screen on the back side.
Exactly. Here you see that this one is ready to be, that's one of our units, a test unit. So we have one interface on this side, and you could have the interface on the other side as well.
And some NACs there as well.
Some NACs as well.
To come. Okay. But you can also, in that case, you could just pull through.
Sure.
So you could have a truck and trailer, or
absolutely
on this side and that side, and
so
that's awesome.
Those are the patterns that we're seeing more and more. People are not like just pulling in front, charging and leaving. Some people are pulling heavy stuff with their cars. We need to be able to acknowledge that need as it goes, as the adoption will go. The diversity of user needs will grow. So we need to have a flexible platform, and that's something that we achieve with that product.
Amazing. Well, I would say from my perspective, it's so cool. The cable management's like the coolest part. I can't wait to get into that. But even just the fact that we were just charging that Hummer at over 300 kilowatts and still above 200 kilowatts for a long time. And it was very quiet. You could hear some airflow going, but just like any charger, of course, but it was dead quiet for that much power.
And that's something else that is interesting. It's the airflow. At some point, we were trying to tone it down to its maximum, but users were telling us, no, I use it as a signal that it's working. So instead of trying to tame it down, we leave it as is. So people are using that signal to say, okay, it's working. So the sound is going. So lots and lots of thinking went into the station. We even designed, I don't think it was implemented in the firmware of the station you've seen outside, but we've implemented sounds. So our signature will be design, but it will be sounds as well. So you will hear a chime when it's starting, once the payment is done. Because when you're talking, like Nathan said, we're talking about reliability and functionality. It's transferring electron to cars, but it's also about making sure that it's working properly, that you won't be in danger trying to charge. Like the first adopters are not looking for that. They're accustomed to it, and they're willing to do with the solution that are not working that properly.
Totally.
But what we're all in for is to increase the adoption, and increase the adoption makes for making it a very simple, very user-friendly approach to charging, and that's something that we are obsessive about.
You know, the one thing that I'm really looking forward to is seeing the pull-through configuration here, because it really is set up unbelievably well for pull-through.
Sure.
Maybe better than any other unit that I've ever seen, and so that is going to be cool. But even in the parking spot configuration, this goes, you know, basically you put the right in the middle of two parking spaces, and then that leaves these right in the middle of each.
Absolutely.
And you have so much cable length that's really important, but then the weight is taken off by this super cool cable management. So I'm really finding it's really hard to poke holes in this thing. Like, it's really well thought out. It's cool.
And your viewers should watch some of your videos when you were in Europe charging in Norway. And so we had a team also doing some research in Norway, and we noticed that the pull-through was natural, right? That's what people were really used to. However, the chargers were not designed for it. And so even when we went to Europe and Norway to check it out per some of your videos, it like you said, just makes sense. And maybe a side note, we jokingly say internally that chargers are designed for engineers by engineers. So the play on the FUBU terminology, but we don't want to create products that you look at it, you're like, oh, an engineer did this. Then we totally missed the mark, right? Most users are not engineers, and so this is why it's great. We're fortunate to have a internal team like Vincent and like his team to be able to help us design and deliver these better experiences.
Yeah, well, congratulations on the design. Again, I don't think I've ever interviewed on this channel or even met a designer of DC chargers, so it's such a cool industry. And thanks.
I have to say, it's my first time being interviewed by a YouTuber about my job, so thank you again.
Yeah, great. Well, appreciate you joining, and that was really cool to learn about this.
No problem.
Hey guys, coming back into the lab now, and we've got, of course, a FLO Ultra here, but this looks like a super cool prototype.
It is a prototype, and if you came here, Kyle, even 8 months ago, you would have seen this thing in 2x4s. So we actually created this starting by 2x4s and plywood.
Cool.
Right? And now we have this. This is what we're going to go through. Again, not the sexiest thing, but this is how we test things and make it ruggedized and really kind of test out concepts. And we're always changing things. So it's kind of our Frankenstein, where we can combine things, test things, change things out.
There's thermocouples you can see, and we named them. This is Caroline, by the way.
Okay, so this is Caroline.
And this one is Flash.
Okay,
so
nice.
yeah, we have
different unique advantages. We'll take you. We have a large 3D printer as well that we're testing things like our connectors, right? Our clamps, right? Also our canopies for the Ultra and for our level 2s. We're also doing things like testing different connectors that we'll get into as well. So this is really kind of like, I like to call it the Mad Science Center, right? Where we design, we operate, we throw stuff at it, we hit stuff with it, we graffiti it to see how we could rub graffiti off, to make sure that the actual powder coat paint that we're using is standing up for all types of elements and all types of areas that they're going to be installed. Let's look and start to uncover some of the uncovers of your viewers to see what we've never shown before and what we typically don't show. But because it's you, we're going to allow you to see it and open it up to, how many viewers do you have now? Over 250,000, I think
subscribers are awesome, and the viewers are wild. And again, a huge thank you to you guys for going and opening this thing up. It is such, it's a request we have often of DC manufacturers, like, show us the guts. And everyone's like, no way. We're never going to do that.
And we never did it even at the last two shows that we were at, right? Distributech, we announced this at Distributech last year, and we even kept it locked up there. So this is really, truly the first time the market's seen it.
And we feel that design is very much inevitable in terms of what Vincent just mentioned about, in terms of the research that we've done and the technical needs as well, the cooling, the layout. You can see here, we're just opening the user interface, and you can tell that this interface, we can mount it on the other side, on the other door.
Sure.
Right? So there's two doors, easily swappable. So a big consideration is that this thing has to be maintainable by a single technician coming out on site. So somebody can open, unlock this, and has access to all the wiring. And if you open this front door louver, this is the front door, but there's another set of doors inside that you can open.
See the modules.
Yep.
There's the guts. It's nice how much space you guys have. That is so cool.
The space allows us to do more, right? And to constantly expand and enhance.
Everything is modularized, and so one thing that we decided early on is to have multiple suppliers for some of these parts. So you'll notice that the power modules, they're handwritten 40 kilowatt.
Yeah, I love it.
For folks who are wondering, we plan to have multiple suppliers to supply these. Of course, one, it helps us choose the most reliable supplier, but then two, it helps us negotiate better pricing, right? And if we can bring the cost down of these chargers, of course, more people have access to more charging. Another element is that we put big blowers. Big blowers are a larger size, help reduce the RPM, reduce the speed of the fan, keep the noise at a reasonable level. And like Vincent said, we didn't want to be too quiet because people are like, is it really working? But we don't want to be loud to the point that people are scared. In fact, I think the engineering team also played around with the fan speed. I can play some music. I don't know whether we're going to demo this. They mentioned that over there. They're smiling in the background there. And then we have these, you can see the architecture is basically like two chargers. You have the left charger, you have the right charger. 4 bank of 40 here, 4 bank of 40 here. And as we mentioned, you can have another Ultra next to it, and we can connect the two DC bars together. And so all those, especially 16 power modules, so 8 here and 8 on the other one, could all share power to a single port.
And what's cool is it doesn't require a sub box to do a DC link. You would just hook this unit right into another one. Now, the 160 kilowatt per side dedicated, was that dictated mostly by NEVI, or is there another reason? Why did you choose this power?
It was a combination of things. NEVI for sure influenced it. They need a minimum of 150 kilowatt. But from our user research and testing, just like the Hummer, typically they request about 300 some kilowatt is typically the max power. And your viewers, I'm sure they're very savvy. The charging curve, they only request the max power for a certain amount of time. So we felt this is a good balance in terms of size, in terms of design user experience, in terms of meeting NEVI requirements, and being able to at least deliver that peak charge for the short amount of time that an EV is.
Especially as you spread this across 4 ports and you can do dynamic load sharing. I would imagine on very few cases, unless you do the Hummer EV owners meetup, there and everyone shows up dead, everyone's probably getting full power the whole time.
Exactly.
Yep. We can dynamically push to each other, right? So if a Nissan Leaf pulls in, we can only give it 50 kilowatts, let's say, right, to the maximizer, and then push the rest of the power to the other. The other unique piece with this, Kyle, you're probably saying, well, where the heck is the liquid cooling? Right? In this one is actually non-liquid cooled. It's air cooled. So it's a lower voltage, right, from a cable perspective, right? But it's for a use case, right? We want to make sure that everything is use case specific. So in this area, this works really, really well for auto dealers, right? Who are going to be plugging in their fleet, charging their fleet, but not as much probably as a public station.
So they'd be fine with like a 400 amp or 350 amp cable versus the big boy is 500 when you do.
Exactly.
Will you go above 500 amps at some point?
Not right now, but of course, as the technology becomes available and EVs can actually take on the power, we will do it.
Yeah.
This is all modular, so we will support multiple cables, just like we support multiple power modules, and everything, nearly everything in this charger is field upgradable.
Okay, very cool. So you can deploy CCS as, you know, NACS vehicles become more popular. You can do one CCS, one NACS.
Exactly.
Is there ever a future, an idea where you can include some sort of an adapter? We've started to see, you know,
Starting to see more of those.
ChargePoint announced Omniport. There's Tesla Magic Dock. Is there going to be a FLO something?
Yeah. Can't share right now, but we will share more as we announce it. What I can commit to all your viewers that everything we'll do is not the easiest way to deliver a solution, but the best way from a reliability and user experience perspective. So we want to make sure that it's not super difficult to manipulate, that it is still very easy to use. We want to make sure that it's reliable. And so actually, right after this, we can walk over to see all the cables that we're testing and evaluating.
Yeah, would love to.
Same thing with the adapters. We're looking at what are the ways that we can deliver the best adapter experience so that a single port can charge 2 or 3 different type of connectors. And so we can head over there right after this.
Yeah, one last question on the inside. So you obviously have airflow coming from the front as suction, and then air management pulls it through the back there. It seems obviously you have enough room here to keep it air cooled, doesn't require liquid cooling everywhere. That's awesome. From a power split standpoint though, obviously you have 40 kilowatt power modules. Can you split these in half in any way? So like if you're doing dynamic load balancing, are they in 40 kilowatt chunks, or what's the spread?
There's an AC/DC and DC/DC board inside it. So that's how a power module is combined inside. It's literally 2 PCB boards if you open it up. That said, I think you're leading on to some of the things that we're exploring. Should we make the power module smaller? Should we make the power modules even bigger? We see some players having 50 kilowatt modules, right?
Yeah.
Should we do even 100 kilowatt modules? One thing that we are very cognizant about, however, in terms of pushing more power, is the weight of these power modules. If you ever lifted one of these things, it's solid iron, it's very heavy. You can probably do a glutes workout session using doing that thing.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that one technician can maintain it. And so we probably won't go too much heavier, but we could potentially go lighter or modularize it or cutting down smaller potentially.
Yeah, I'm just thinking granularity is always great for load balancing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely.
But 40 kilowatts seems reasonable from my side, no issues there. So can we check out some cables then?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, let's roll.
As we're going to the cables to look out, let's geek out on a few other things. We wanted to show interoperability, right, with our partners like ChargePoint, right? As much as ChargePoint's a competitor to us, they are very much a partner. We compete from a business perspective, but we partner in interoperability. So as a FLO mobile app user, I can activate a ChargePoint station. As a ChargePoint mobile app user, I can activate a FLO station. You're starting to see that more and more in the industry, right? And again, that goes back to how do we make EV drivers' lives simpler to activate this stuff in the field, right? And really reduce that education.
This we affectionately call the chamelle in French, but this is, you remember we mentioned that we're a 15-year-old company. We did EV charging before EVs was really a thing.
Yeah.
And there was no way to simulate a car or test a charger. There was no products out there, there was no solutions out there. So we actually custom designed and built this thing to simulate a car and to test our chargers. Now, of course, today, Keysight, Chroma, there's other manufacturers that make those, so we don't have to engineer our own tester or EV simulator, but we still use them because we have them. Next thing that we're looking at is how do you calibrate these chargers in the field, right? Yeah. Today, you have to haul these huge racks. You see one over there, you see one over here. They're expensive, they're heavy. We can't really put those in technician vehicles. So it's another problem that we will need to solve as an industry is how do you calibrate these things, right?
Calibrate it and even sell for test equipment to make sure meters are appropriate for, you know, CTEP requirement and all the other things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've definitely been overcharged and undercharged from DC chargers many times that I know. And I'm like, okay, we need a
Yeah, it's not a good feeling.
yeah, exactly. I'll just pay what you say on the tin, but don't overcharge me.
Yep.
Yeah.
You'll see too, Kyle, the cable management that we use, right? We saw Easy Lift, right? We revolutionized that. We also, in our standard DC product, we use a lot of ruggedized cables, right? So we've gotten away from kind of that nylon cable in the early days.
Yeah.
But they're counterweight, so you can see the weight at the bottom,
cool.
right? The cool thing with the counterweight is based on the weight of the cable. Okay, so again, when this retracts and extracts, the weight of the counterweight is taking off of that slack and creating a natural slack, so it's putting less strain on the connector. What that does is primarily where you see a lot of issues in chargers, both level 2 and DC, is failures in the connector. And a lot of that is because of the negative tension pull back that's kind of breaking a lot of the connectors inside, right? The pins. So this piece was really kind of near and dear in our design. The other kind of Canadian aspect that I love about the Smart DC, and I'm really going to miss it, if you zoom into the bottom there, you're going to see a hockey puck cut in half. That's part of our Canadian heritage, right?
That's great.
So hockey is so like loved and beloved in Canada. That's what we integrated as kind of our history piece back in 2014.
That's amazing. And these things are like the most reliable, hardcore.
Old Faithful.
I would consider them the like Toyota Corolla Chargers. They're like not fast, they're not beautiful.
It's a compliment,
They work. There's 50 kilowatt and 100 kilowatt, right? So like we said upstairs, we were really the first North American manufacturer to create a 50 kilowatt fast charger, and having that in the field. That unit still functions and operates today.
Wow.
So that's a massive history piece with us, right? And the only reason why we've waited so long to launch a higher power charger is everything that we were testing, everything that we were conceptualizing, everything that we were come up with never hit our minimum standard of 98% uptime. And that's why we were more patient to release the high power Ultra, is because now we have the proof point to make sure that that longevity is within, because when an EV driver drives up, it's always this thing's fault, right? It's never the car that you just invested $60,000, $80,000, $100,000.
Another thing that Brooks mentioned, just to tie it back to the FLO Ultra, why we motorized it, this weight has to be bigger if the cable is heavier. And it's always pulling back. So as you're trying to pull, it's fighting you back, and the counterweight is even heavier. So that was part of doing that motorized, so that when it's at the right length, it stops pulling, right? So you're not constantly fighting with it. So it was a good solution for this generation, but for the heavier cables, we need a new solution.
Yeah, I mean, these will be so cool. They'll end up in an EV museum one day. And they're pretty awesome. But you've just got a bunch of cool stuff around here, another Ultra in testing, and this is actually set up to be like pull-through configuration.
This is, if you want to take a look to really kind of see and view it, right? You've got the single side, and then again the full opposite side. So we are starting to deploy these at scale. We just started shipping out officially from our Michigan location FLO Ultras in more scale, in rapidly pieces. So we have the one outside that you saw at headquarters. We have one in Pickering, Ontario. We just did one in Alberta with a Ford dealer, and now we're shipping also around the States. So you're going to start seeing more of these pull-through configurations. They're great for kind of the medium-duty side, right? But they're also awesome for you tow. You talk about towing all the time, right? Whether it's a boat, whether it's a trailer, it's really going to open up that market.
Yeah, I just cannot wait to see these things in pull-through configurations, because it's the first charger that's designed truly for a pull-through.
And you'll notice Easy Lift. We always put the actual cable management on the side of the screen, right? Again,
cool.
to make so you'll see this one here, and then this one's on the outside, so it's always matching to the screen, again, to really overall enhance the user experience and the ease and the accessibility of the cable management. Let's go over to the connectors, the cables. We're going to also look at our level 2 stuff, because you're getting more and more into level 2.
So we'll do cables, and then a lot of questions about the home charging stuff here.
A lot of cables over here. You can see the manufacturers, and some of them you've talked on your channel a lot. Referral here, Volex here. So Arima over here. We test for reliability, for temperature. If it's not liquid cooled, can we boost at a higher power for 5, 10, however many minutes, so that we can maybe lighten the load? But it's always a balance. If you don't have liquid in the cables, you have to have beefier copper. And so we're trying to figure out what's that right balance. The other challenge, for a connector like this, you have a handle to be able to grab it. But when you start looking at the Tesla cables, obviously there's no handles typically. And to try to rotate these things to line up the pins is really hard.
I mean, when we use a supercharger as an example, the cables are so short, which is a benefit when you're designing for one brand of car, one type of car. But they can go so thin, and they also push current levels crazy with active cooling. But those are awesome to maneuver. But when you need 18 feet of cable to support every different EV, you start getting stuff like this. And I think a lot of our viewers had in their mind, everything's going NACS, everything's going to be so easy to interface. And the answer just is not the case.
Laws of physics still there. You have a lot of current, a lot of energy, so you need a bigger, beefier cables. And so we've made it, you can see we made some of these cable management systems onto it, just to test out, to see the usability, the flexibility. And so we're actively, you will see FLO Ultras be available with more cable types, more connector types, And hopefully we can announce and answer your questions soon about the modular connector or whatever we'll come out with.
But my fingers are crossed just that someone comes up with a UL rated cable that's either immersion cooled or something super reliable, that's thin, that can handle huge current, because this is not the future to do, you know, really thick cables. Right now, this is the only way to do it.
Yep.
But I really hope there's some innovation in this space.
And I think where the industry and especially EV drivers have to understand is, just because this thing is getting implemented doesn't mean that it's going to work every time. We talked about interoperability, right? We talked about dynamics of the OEM vehicles. When we were upstairs, I pointed out the reason why we went into Michigan is literally every OEM is there, so they ship us their vehicles 6 months before it hits North American pavement. We scrutinize the handshakes between the vehicle and the charger, right? And this is now going to have to support hundreds and hundreds of different vehicles, different firmware sets from the OEMs.
Totally.
So every manufacturer network operator has to start obsessing more to make this thing work, because it's not just going to be a turn the lights on and everything's la-di-da and as uptime as Tesla.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be pretty similar to CCS. The communication should be the same, and we know that's not perfect.
Exactly.
And especially as more vehicles come on the market, more firmware updates go out, that could brick older cars.
That's
and
right.
I mean, this is stuff that you guys balance every day. And we didn't even mention it, but the bay over to the left is where you do your interoperability testing, at least here.
Yeah, and then we're going to do more and more here in Auburn Hills, Michigan, because we're closer to some of the car manufacturers, so we'll be doing it at both locations.
Yeah, very cool.
Okay, before we hit the level 2, maybe, so this is, I know you were interested in this as well.
Yeah.
So this is the cable management system with the cover.
This is where we're really opening up the covers and taking
You're
over
able
everything.
to, I think our magician here is going to click the interface here and run it.
Okay.
But this is what it looks like inside.
So cables coming out here,
Yep.
basically.
Yep.
This is the literal workings of that motorized connection.
Yep.
So so we have the electric motor here.
We have the electric motor, and then the electric motor, we have to find an electric motor that could have high duty cycle without failing. Some of the motors that we tested, you saw shards of plastic coming off of it, and so that's not really good. We have this reel and this guide to make sure that the cable never gets tangled. So it's guided in and out of the unit. The cable itself, we also try to find a cable that's very strong, but also does not fray after a lot of cycles. So that took a long time for the team to figure out. And you can see we have a load cell that we use to make sure that as it's being pulled, if it feels a tug, it stops pulling, right? That we don't damage anything or anything. And this whole thing, of course, is UL certified, safety tested, to make sure that it's safe for everyone to use.
Yeah, that is so cool. I mean, the effort that went into this is just insane.
Yep.
But it's so needed because I've never really used a great cable management system.
Yeah.
Some of the ones that are better than others have these huge arms that come off the chargers, and they just take up so much space, and this is compact and motorized. I'm sure not the cheapest solution, but maybe the best.
Yep.
I mean, it'll be cool to play around with.
It's all to user experience, so you got to be willing to invest that a little bit more money, right, to get that user experience. This is 100% FLO's design, right? So we have it patentable. It's our design. It, like Nathan is saying, it will not ravel or will not snag, and in how we've developed EasyLift. So
How many cycles have we tested?
Over 100,000 cycles.
Yeah, over 100,000 cycles that we've tested.
Plus 50.
Minus 30 to plus.
This whole jigs fit in our test chamber.
Yeah, let's go back.
Let's just check it out.
This is the coolest piece.
Yeah, let's freaking do that.
Our test chamber of everything that we test from a cable management perspective, from pull out and retraction in, is constantly moving along in this piece that we've actually developed and designed. It's one of the only ones that's recognized by UL and some other agencies to ensure that the cable management has a lifetime, again, of over 7 to 10 years. And also what it tests is the clamps that we create and build, how many sessions will it do before it starts eating into the rubber of the actual connector, right? So this again helps us test cables, as well as helps us test the retraction and retraction of those over 100,000 sessions that we've got on EasyLift, and hundreds of thousands of cable management sites that you saw in New York City.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we use this to test the EasyLift that you saw in the FLO Ultra, but as you can see, we're testing level 2 residential cable management system. So this is, we'll show this next. This is the cable management system for our new residential charger. And we're using the same test rig just like we did for our commercial chargers, just to ensure that it meets our high standards.
Yeah, so for like literally 100 years at home, this thing should run. Yeah.
100,000 sessions is well over 10 years of constant use.
Yeah, that's
is what that
amazing.
translates into.
Yeah, super cool. Well, yeah, I mean, this is a nice cable management unit right there. So that's for level 2 home purpose.
That's for level 2.
I love that you have cable management for home.
Yes.
This is like something no one else has.
And
That's
We're getting
That's,
so many requests for it.
Really?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's been the design theory thinking that we've done. We've got a few of these sub-zero temperature engagement test pieces. Every component that goes into our chargers goes into this.
Oh, wow.
So it gets hit for minus 50, plus 50, and like right down to our boards. We'll take you to another one right now where we're freezing boards to see the mechanisms. They're fully functioning inside, so you'll be able to scroll in. Once all the components and everything get built and put together on the actual units, we then send them to our third-party partner, which basically has like an igloo incubator test that puts freezing rain onto it, snow onto it, overheating, excess heating, flooding it, so we can make sure that all those sensors that Nathan was talking about earlier, about 250 in FLO Ultra, are activating, and we can see that remotely in our network operations center to dispatch anything going on that we're seeing in the field.
super cool. So I guess level 2 time now?
Yes, level 2.
Yeah, let's get into FLO Home.
So this is what our viewers are, general EV consumers. This is kind of the stuff that they can actually purchase, or they'll see at their friends' houses
Yeah,
or whatever.
absolutely. So we just started shipping these, the FLO X3, X6, and X8. These run at 50 amps, 48, 50 amp AC charging, and then these run at 80 amp. And you'll notice the way that we design it and we engineer it is just like our commercial products. These you can connect both copper and aluminum wiring. Some viewers don't know that there are specific type of terminals that you need to be able to connect the 2 types. Also, this has Wi-Fi and cellular connectivity. So in the future, we plan to activate cellular connectivity for people who want to be able to control it or share their charger, but they don't have good Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so like condos or apartment complexes
absolutely.
where they're not near a Wi-Fi receiver.
Yep.
That's really smart.
To make it more accessible, this one is plastic enclosure. We still, of course, test to the highest standard in terms of weatherproofness and such. And then the higher end models are still the cast aluminum, the ruggedness that we have a strong reputation for. The connector in front, you can deport it, so you can take it off and mount it closer to your car. And that's why we also made that cable management system. So it's a metal gear based. We tried a couple of plastic type gear based, and they also tend to break, they tend to fail. And so like everything else, we try to make sure that whatever we implement is highly reliable. And of course, J167 all metal on metal locking over here, and then an ACS connector as well.
Very cool.
We have 2 pedestals that we're launching soon as well, with basic pedestal and advanced. And this one even has lighting, motion detection, and all that. So
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Users are also able, Kyle, a lot of people want to lock these, right? So from your mobile app, you can set this, and this will lock out the button to be able to take it out of the charger.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
So we're really listening to what users are really wanting and asking for.
A couple of things that we know tend to fail is the circuit board, this power board on the bottom. And we put a lot of care in terms of making sure that there's one is properly designed and laid out. But then we put the right solder, like placing enough solder. We know that some of the competitor products they may fail in 3-5 years-ish. So we take a lot of care to make sure that we have the right solder, a good amount of solder, and we cycle test them at different temperatures and try to make sure that they don't fail over time. And the other thing that we noticed that electricians, when they put the gasket and they put this cover on, they might bend the gasket or not put the gasket properly. So we actually molded these gaskets to make sure that it's easy to put in, and when it minimizes the risk that when the electrician puts this cover in, that the gasket is bent and there's water ingress.
That is so smart. What a cool idea. Yeah, I've definitely seen water ingress into so many EVSEs, and this is a great way to avoid that.
And then there's an aesthetic plate. So over
Yeah.
time, we'll have also different color options. So, if you want your house to look nice, so you
Yeah.
can do that as well.
Very cool. Love to see that. That's really awesome. And what a departure from the old 32 amp home unit that's, again, dead reliable.
It's dead reliable.
Dead
it still
expensive.
lasts. Yeah.
It is expensive, but dude, those things work forever.
It is.
so.
It is. I have one of the very first ones that was a pre-production unit, so
Yeah.
about 8.5 years ago, and it's still functioning today. We still use it today,
That's
along with the X8 at my house.
And Go on FLO.com or FLO.ca,
Yeah.
see the new pricing. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
surprised.
We worked really hard to try to bring the price down
Yeah.
so that more people can get it.
Awesome.
Todd, we talked about some of our testing, right? And how we create kind of our clamps for our cables and everything. Part of how we do that is kind of this kind of cool machine. Maybe your viewers would love to see it. This is a 3D printer, right? So we, at first, when we're designing everything, we 3D print everything. And the 3D printing that we're doing allows us to also rigorously test it. So all those testing systems that you saw that we took you through where the FLO Home cable management system was, those clamps were tested through the 3D printing. We know if we make it strong enough and we're seeing that uniqueness on 3D printing, that when we actually take it to a stamping shop and get it done, the quality is going to be there.
Love
so
to see
we're
that.
always testing different things.
This is like one hell of a 3D printer, though.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
It's called Big Red.
It's called, yeah,
Yeah, love it.
Big Red.
So cool.
Now we're going to go deeper into the lab, places that not a lot of people have seen. And we have a thermal chamber on this side as well.
There's some FLO Homes about to be shipped out.
Cool.
Maybe we can.
You got to send Brandon one.
Yeah, maybe we can send one.
Yeah, we know a couple guys that'll get you a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in here we have the power boards for our FLO Home residential chargers. So if you put your camera up close,
Even though it says no photography,
There you
breaking
go. You're
the
now getting it.
rules. Okay, let's see if we can get it in there.
get it.
Yep.
And so we're cycling temperature for those boards just to make sure that they, again, stand the test of time and stay rock solid for our customers.
That is so cool, guys.
Yeah.
Love to see that. I mean, that's just,
this is just a smaller version, right, of what we showed you in the other room as far as the weather chamber and the incubation chamber. And then all of these pieces we are able to test at the same time because the boards are connected into those, so we can see basically everything that's happening in cold weather. That's again really kind of the true differentiator, I would say, to FLO, and where we get a lot of that history of uptime, reliability, is everything is for true 4-season environment from the testing, and kind of going overboard in many areas. A lot of people will say, hey, our stuff never goes to minus 45, so what do I have to worry about it, right?
Yeah.
But those cycles of constant change is what wears things down. So if we can get it to the max, it's going to guarantee us getting to that 7 to 10 plus year lifetime value out of the product.
So this is our weatherproof garage. So we spray water, we do water ingress testing in this environment. It's bits and parts and the plywood and then
yeah.
All of this is kind of the Frankenstein test piece,
Yeah, I
right?
love it.
We
This is
didn't
so
want to
cool.
clean it up for you. We wanted you to see kind of real core kind of piece.
These are resistive loads, so it's just glorified toasters with fan that blows
Yep.
to take the load. But it's somewhat wasting energy, and so that's why we have also regenerative loads. So that way, as we consuming power, we actually reuse it and giving it back to our building so we can use it elsewhere.
Yeah, this makes the most sense to do the regenerative
Yeah.
testing, so you're not just burning juice.
In this area is our technician area. So electronic soldering, prototype boards.
And by the way, people are going to ask, like, where is everyone? This is a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, everybody's kind of outside because we brought in a poutine food
Oh,
truck.
okay.
So we
yeah.
brought you some poutine for Kyle. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll go grab some.
This is, keep in mind, this is all of our testing and design. This isn't manufacturing, right? So we're not manufacturing stuff here. This is where it starts from the ground up. We mature it, and then we take it into our production facilities in Shawinigan and in Detroit, and getting to this final state.
This is our firmware area. So we've had a couple of engineers here working on the firmware, but we use these units to just load up and test out the different firmwares.
Yeah,
We're
with great names, by the way. Love all this stuff.
And so what we do in our firmware, we're one of the first to start splitting our firmware into 2 layers. You have the operating system, you have applications that you can run on top of it. And so you can imagine one day we could have an advertising app running on it. We could have wireless connectivity app. We could have a security camera app running on it. So both on these level 2 chargers and our DC fast chargers like the FLO Ultra, we can run multiple apps. For those of you who want to geek out, we have IMEX processors, and they're industrial grade processors that can run different applications. And so that was very important for us, is to enable our customers. And so that's why we architected our firmware on our chargers that way.
Yeah, that is cool. I know nothing about that world, but sounds good to me.
Yeah, let him talk about
the
it.
commenters will mention
Yeah.
if it's good. Yeah.
So yeah, so do we want to head back outside and
Yeah, let's go out and we'll kind of finish up. But holy smokes, again, guys, this is so cool to come into this area to see all the behind the scenes stuff of a network that is known for reliability, to see what's going into it. Just my first time being here. This is super cool.
Thank you for coming. We love that you've made the time.
Yeah.
And we hope you come back and you can see some other stuff that as we walked through a couple areas, you saw some covers over things. So those we can unleash to your viewers and you in a couple of months.
Great. Well, we'll go outside. I want to take a look at the Ultra one last time. We've got your Hummer top charging at the moment, so I want to see how that went.
Yeah, I wish we could turn the lights off because Hummer at night is a totally different experience.
Yeah.
Right? It's the one time where you want to keep the lights on at night, right?
Yeah,
it looks so sexy. It's a completely different kind of interaction when you see the lighting illumination
You've got all that
just the overall experience.
Yeah,
all the downlighting. Yeah. So
cool.
it's incredible.
Well, we'll go outside. We should point out the lighting areas anyway.
Yeah,
so
let's
people
do it.
know it.
Yeah.
And then we'll wrap this up.
Yeah.
But again, thank you guys. This is great.
Thank you. Okay, so now we are in a very unique center. It's a training center, and I'm going to bring in Jan to talk about all things from the training of our service techs, from our outside contractor partners, network operations. So we're going to kind of pull back some of the covers to show you how we know what's going on with chargers in the field, what is specifically happening with them. We mentioned that we have sensors all throughout our chargers, like on FLO Ultra, we have over 250 sensors. This team is the one that's constantly monitoring those around the clock. So overall in our network, we have over 100,000 chargers deployed throughout Canada and the United States. That's public charging on level 2, that's DC fast charging, that is workplace charging, some fleet, and then also residential. So even on our residential product that's connected to the internet, our guys are looking at them, right? It's not Big Brother. We're not looking at what you're doing. We're looking at what's happening with the charging sequences, what's happening with the handshakes of the vehicle, because that's what's really important to make sure that every time I connect in, we have a unique and guaranteed first time resolution from a charging perspective. And that's what you see a lot of kind of hardship in the industry, right? Is I plugged in and it disconnected. I plugged in and it didn't work. I don't know how to activate things. Our call center, which is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, totally accessible to every EV driver. Every charger that's in a public setting or workplace setting has a toll-free number on it with a unique identifier. So when a user does call in if they're having issues, we can triage and see again everything remotely to help them. And that's a 24/7 call center that we have that every EV driver who is a FLO member has access to. It's part of why we really kind of push activating from your mobile app or activating from an RFID card, is because we know who the driver is if they're calling in, or we know who the driver is to proactively outreach to them if we see something going on that's an issue, right? So it's part of our secret sauce in making sure our uptime and reliability really lasts. And the guy that heads all of that up is Jan, and we'll bring him in now to basically open up the floodgates here.
Jan, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome at our Network Technical Center. So here today we have a portion of the NOC team, Network Operations Center. Olivier, Michael are here. Alex is here as well. We have Daniel, who's one of our trainer, and he's developing work instruction for training technicians or sometimes contractor. Jérôme is there today as one of our great field technicians. So as Brooks mentioned, what we're doing here, many things. Yes, we are training our employees. Yes, we are training our own contractors, but developing work instruction, how to better, faster, all the time service and repair the stations, because having the best hardware must go with having also the best network operation and repair team. That's very, very important. We see that as just like the telecom industry, managing a network of charger must be like managing a telecom network. It's becoming an essential service. It needs to work. And we want to make sure we're the best at it. All right. So yes, we have one version of every chargers that we have. You see another
so cool.
Ultra.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have unique also portion of equipment because we just all the time need to be able to replicate methods, work instructions. All right. One thing about how does it work when we're monitoring and we want to repair something if it goes wrong. First of all, managing a network is managing big data, right? And this is something very unique to us. We're monitoring more than 30,000 stations all around there. FLO did build something like 100,000
Over
stations.
100,000, yeah.
Right now, our monitoring center are looking at about 30,000 people, 30,000 stations. And monitoring a network is managing big data. So learning and improving out of this data is really, really important. So the best story for us most of the time will be, yeah, somebody calls in, there is a problem for a station everywhere in North America. What we want to happen is our customer service saying, oh yes, we're aware of that situation. Our monitoring folks saw the problem, and there's a technician going to fix it. Sometimes they can even fix it remotely, right? To do that, yes, we have maybe a dozen monitoring technicians to do that. And Alex, as an example, is part of the BI, business intelligence team, all the time trying to do the best of this data and trying to improve our detection softwares, right? So yes, we have our CPO, we have our EMS, but the best network operations center will always evolve to have better tools all the time. It's not one version, one set of alarms. The alarms we have this week, I don't think are the same we're gonna have in 3-4 weeks. It's always evolving. That's super important. We can give you some examples, maybe Michael, of some of the alarming tools that we have that we developed with Alex as an example.
So here we have one of our stations. So we can see the history of the energy transfer, some of the alarms that we had, and the dates. And so we can see like a more global what's going on in the station, but we can also see specifically what happened during the sessions.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. So you even get like charging curves and state of charge and all that stuff.
Exactly. So the state of charge here.
Yeah, this was a deep charge, 10%, and they went all the way up to like almost 92%, something like that,
exactly.
93?
Yeah. So we can see here that there was an issue with the charging here, and then it kind of dropped when it got to 80, but clearly it was lower than what we expected.
Yeah.
So this station, we have a work order in progress right now so that we can
Okay,
repair.
so there's an amperage limit, which I would guess, because as they gained state of charge, the voltage went up, which kept it. But then what do you think happened here? Do you know exactly?
It was at 80%. So the car
okay.
requested less power. So we can see right here, so that's the maximum that the station could
Yeah,
provide.
so here's your current limit. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. What was requested, and then here the request dropped, so that's what
Yep.
was measured also dropped.
Oh, very cool. So this is a slow charging car, whatever it is. But
Exactly.
Imagine derating down to below 20 kilowatts. But okay, yeah,
for sure.
Totally. You got to charge a bunch of cars on the network.
And what you see there is kind of the power of being the guys who are designing the station, building the station, but operating it. Having access to all those data points, we can create all the automations to see that. We can show maybe the I always like the stolen cable app that Alex developed.
Yeah, so how would you know when a cable is cut, as an example?
One of the sensors will tell us.
So you have sensors to know when the
In the
cable's no longer
cables, yes.
present. Huh.
So that helps us to say that. I think today we had 2, if I recall well.
It's a real problem, isn't it?
It's not a big problem because again, we're monitoring something like 30,000 stations. There's definitely a hype in the media about that, but amongst our 30,000 stations, the tool will tell us something like 7, 10 per day these days.
Okay.
It's not the end of the world, right? And the good thing is that we see, we dispatch, we fix, right?
Yeah.
So, and as I said, it's all about what do you do with this ton of data. So that's for the NOC. Of course, if they can fix things remotely, they will. But I didn't show the look and feel. I'm sorry.
Here.
But
So
today we had 3 cable cut.
So this is the cable cutting.
Yeah.
Oh, this is such good data. You know, because we even did a video. There was an issue in Seattle not long ago where like a bunch of DC chargers were all hit at once.
Yep.
And I think, partially our fault and many, it's like, oh, that must be happening everywhere. But I've actually never personally, maybe only one time, rolled up to a station with cables cut.
It does happen. What we find is usually it happens once or twice in the area and then never again.
That's it.
Because they're learning, the guys are taking this stuff to hawk the copper, right?
Yeah.
And the copper is valueless in these things because
Yeah.
it's so flexible, right?
Yeah.
Like look at how easy this
There's
is
like,
to flex.
you know, less than $10.
Yeah.
This would be like $2.
Completely.
That's it.
Completely. So that's what we were saying before when we were talking, right? Part of the history of the Smart 2 with the locking door is what we were seeing was cables were getting cut back in 2011, and we were like, why are these getting cut? They're valueless.
Yeah.
And we put a camera out where they were getting hit most of the time. It was electrical contractors coming, cutting them and repairing stations that they had put in the field from other manufacturers that they couldn't get because they're using just high quality connectors. So part of this history is everybody thinks it's just to keep out rain, sleet, and freezing rain, but it's also there's other methods, right?
Yeah,
and
that's
what
to
you're
keep
seeing,
electrical contractors out.
yeah,
That's amazing.
what you're seeing is only like 5% of what Jan's built out, right? And team. So this is really FLO's true secret sauce. Where we lose on our traditional side, Kyle, of where we lose kind of an opportunity or a business is usually in the flashing lights of what a owner might want to look at from a usage perspective. We don't have the sexy dashboard.
Yeah.
We have a sexy mobile app, a great mobile app. I think really the leading mobile app. I came from software development before I joined FLO. But the true things is what people don't see behind the scenes that really make FLO the company that we are. So what we see is if we lose an opportunity, we always get them back in the second, or at the very worst case, the third round of their procurements, because they start to finally see and understand the reliability aspect, everything that goes on in the background, how important it is and how much of a unique differentiator it is. And you don't get that without these guys on a day in, day out basis.
I need to get your number, by the way, because when I do some charging tests, I want all the data.
Yeah.
So I need to print me out some sheets.
I'll show you something pretty cool as well that maybe the cloud dots about, let's take an anonymous customer, of course, but with Alex, he could build this kind of clouds where you have all the charging sessions and their average power so that
cool.
A machine learning can be good at looking at those dots and identifying the chargers that are behaving a bit too low. Well, that's weird. So yes,
like
a
some
lot
are
of
outputting derated,
that's it.
as an example.
So yes, we have all the data about the max power, but what about the intelligence to analyze all those sessions and be able to build something out of it and then create, guys, from the NOC, today, these are the chargers that we should look at, right? With the biggest customers, like Circuit Électrique as an example, members of the NOC team will be on a scrum every morning. The ones that have thousands of stations with us. And good morning, everybody. Yesterday we had this problem. It was fixed. And this other problem, the technician will be there in a few minutes. Today we discovered this, and that. By the way, you have 2 cables stolen. You see, every morning with the biggest customers, that's a game changer. Really.
So when I was in New York and I met with some of the service guys there, what is the typical response time?
4 hours in New York.
4 hours in New York. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because I've seen chargers that have been down for weeks.
Yeah. And we decided to do it like that with New York, right? It was part of, okay, let's build a network together, but if we're doing it, let's do the best possible uptime. And it works because in New York, it's 99.9% all the time, right? So we have the right agreements. Being very serious about uptime is also measuring all the time. My entire team, whether it's the NOC or it's field service technicians, our main word is uptime. So we need to measure all the time everything. So all the time we are measuring the uptime per customer, per area, per station model, utilization, all of that is always measured, okay? Something else that we're doing with the data, as an example.
Sorry, can we go back to that page really quick?
Of course.
So I just wanted to zoom in on this. So you're measuring uptime. Everyone seems to have a different definition of uptime. Yeah. Now this is your day-to-day work. So I would like to know, because I really don't know how to quantify it, what does FLO and what do you consider up?
Can you provide a charge?
So it could be even a D-rated charge, but a charge.
Yeah, can you provide a charge? We're still measuring, as you could see on the cloud dots, we're measuring the level of charge, but is the station working or not? The exceptions we will make is, let's say, because as you know, we're own and operate, but we're also sell and operate. Of course, sometimes we need the owner's permission to act. All right, so we will be measuring the downtime, but if we cannot act, if there's delays for accessing, we'll measure it as well. But for us, is the charger able to provide a charge?
Very
all right?
cool. Yeah, no, that's really good to know. And in your impression, should uptime be measured at the station level or at the port level? What do you think?
Well, for Ultra, it's going to be measured at the port level because Ultra has 2 ports.
Yep. So it's like even if one of 2 ports are on, that would be considered 50%.
Yeah, that's it. The algorithm, and it was made with our good friend Daniel, is measuring, depending on if there's a failure, there's a core central unit. If this fails, bump, double downtime. But if only one side fails and the other side is still going on, we'll measure 50% downtime.
Okay,
very
cool.
well done to make sure we're very precise measuring.
Yeah, I find a lot, that's what I like to hear. That's awesome. I've just seen so many companies be like, oh, if 1 out of 8 ports is up, then the station's alive.
No.
It's like, no.
No, not at all.
Now, something else for many times a week, this is our dashboard that we call the Uptime Killer dashboard. What's killing the uptime right now? Which stations are down? For how long? Why? Most of the time, we don't need to talk about these because our NOC and our service teams are talking together. The machine is well oiled, but sometimes maybe we don't have the right processes. Maybe that station was outsourced to a contractor and didn't know how to do it. We're catching the exceptions there, and we need to be able to understand what happened. And what do we do to make sure we're always improving? So that's why we need to measure the uptime killer, right? Always improving, very important.
Yeah, the uptime killer. I like it. That should be the name of a podcast that we should do about all of the problems with the charging.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Ultimately, everything that we test and do and run and look at, we want to help the people in the field with installations, with uptime, with serviceability, the customers in the field. So all of this stuff translates down to who we have to rely on the most for this infrastructure, right? The contractors are so important in this because electrical contractors are the only guys that can install that thing, right? And there's a lot of power here. So the safety mechanisms of everything that we do is really so serious and true to us.
Now, something else, we divide North America into territories. So that's one territory where there's a regional manager with his regional spare parts, with his field technicians, and we know exactly which repair tickets we have, for how long they're here. And as you can see, yes, today there's 44 to repair. Remember, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of stations in Quebec. So we have 44 tickets to look at, 5 uptime killer right now. So we know we need to look at those. There's even a special place here for a very tight SLA that we're looking at. So measuring is super important. We developed our own dispatching tool, adapted, it was based on one of the best dispatching tool in the world, but adapted deeply for charging networks. Again, it's our good friend Daniel, who's almost full-time making sure these are the best. Field technicians receive their dispatch. We see all the time what they do on a map. Of course, they have their app with what is the station down, what kind of analysis was done by our good friends at the NOC, work instructions if they need to rely on something. And once they repair, everything is measured again so that, as an example, we can know live all the time after every repair which part was consumed, from which model. You see this learning mechanism.
And then you call engineering and you go, hey guys,
as an example.
Fix it.
As an example. What's breaking here, what's breaking there. So yes, all this learning is fed back to the new products, right?
Oh, so cool.
And then, okay, you measure everything, you fix all the time, all spare parts, good. Why not automate the filling of your regional warehouse with this data? So that's a live view of one warehouse. The minute one spare part is below the minimum stock, it turns red, so that on the Thursday, our main spare part depot will replenish this, you see? And the criterias for these automated system to turning red, yellow, or green is based on our previous consumptions. All this data feeds itself all the time, all right?
So cool.
Yeah, and again, it could be we need to train differently the people doing the repairs. We need to have more of this part. We need to fix something from the R&D. A lot of data comes from there.
Amazing.
Okay? So that's how serious we need to be, because again, it's about seeing the charging networks as essential services.
Well, congratulations on this whole network operations center. This is cool. Shout out to you guys for keeping the network running. Thank you very much. Appreciate all of that. And yeah, I mean, it's just so cool as a FLO customer, someone who uses the chargers. It's so cool to know what's going on behind the scenes. So this was an awesome look. And I have to say, the little museum here, this is so nice to see every FLO charger in one place as well, of course, now with the big boy here in the middle. So again, shout out to you guys for really taking charger the reliability so seriously. This is #1 importance to me as an EV driver. And damn, that data is so cool. I'm sure a lot of charge point operators are going to copy you guys after watching this video.
Yeah,
if everybody improves, it's good.
That's it, right? We want everybody to improve. We want everybody to be at the same level, because this is really the important part. Ultimately, it's the EV driver, right? This is mission critical infrastructure that's coming out to allow people to drive from point A to point B to point C. So it's what we live, eat, and breathe every day.
Love to see it. Well, again, thanks for
Kyle.
bringing us into the knock. This was
buddy.
sick. Brooks, we're outside in the parking lot, dude. What's going on out here?
We are, because we are at the FLO Workplace, our headquarters in Quebec City. Of course, workplace, what's really important is workplace charging, right? So we have workplace chargers all along the back lot of our facility. We have enough power running into this facility that we could literally electrify every parking spot here. So once EV adoption continues to grow and everything, we will be able to, and we will electrify this entire
So this
property.
row will be electric, that
everything
row will be electric.
Yeah, you'll see DCFCs, you'll see level 2s, but everything. But we really like mimicking what's going on in the fields, right? So you saw earlier the Smart 2s, those are public, those are for visitors coming in, right? So we can mimic the visitor charging. And then over on the workplace charging, literally these are used every day, 8 hours a day, constantly. And what's important to understand is really right-sizing workplace charging, right? We provide free workplace charging. It's part of an amenity, a part of a perk of being a FLO team member and coming in. What we always want to do, because everything that's installed in EV charging is done by a certified electrical contractor, right? Never go by like a fly-by-night contractor. He says he's got something, make sure they're properly licensed and everything. But the electrical contractors are so necessary. And what we've done from a workplace charging is in our product, like our Core Plus, for example, Kyle, our pedestals are actually certified basically like an electrical panel enclosure. So the first pedestal is actually run with a 200 amp service into that pedestal. And then we have a cascading kit, daisy chaining each one of the other level 2 chargers. The benefit to that is it allows us to stretch out the amount of power that's available across multiple parking spots, because people are parking for longer at workplace, right? So the right sizing is super, super important in this industry. So we don't all blow our brains out pulling in a whole bunch of power for something that's not necessarily needing that full 40 amp or 80 amp power.
Sure, you don't, especially for places that will be, everyday consistent charging, you don't need 80 amps in every port.
No.
And so I really love the idea of running a single line.
Yes.
Removes so much headache and service upgrades and all that stuff. And then as cars unplug or finish charging, then the rest of the cars will get
more power. Yeah. So on a 40 amp breaker, we can actually split the power across four chargers, right? Yeah. And what that does is sitting for 8 hours, really average EV driver is driving about 35 miles, 60 kilometers a day, right? And that over an 8 hour period, you're going to be back to full again. So really right sizing your property is really what FLO looks at in customization. So you even saw like with FLO Ultra how we have pull-in design or drive-through design, right? We're right-sizing the property. Are you going to put that drive-through design in like the deep downtown core? Probably not, but you're going to put that that drive-through design right off the highway where people are driving with boats and with trailers to really mimic and make it easier for the EV driver to connect into.
Totally. And you know, one thing as well, just over here in the parking lot, I noticed, I have to ask you about them, are these two Mercedes e-Sprinters. Now, these things are awesome.
These are.
What's up with these?
Yeah, so actually we just took delivery of these, I'm gonna guess probably about a month and a half ago. When we say we're rolling trucks, we roll our own trucks, okay? They have our own FLO team members being our service technicians in our core markets. You remember seeing those icons on the wall that we took you upstairs where the larger ones are. This is what you'll see rolling down the line. So we just took delivery of these. Our partner Mercedes is who we source them from. We do for example, Kyle, we do every Mercedes dealership across the country in Canada for level 2 charging, DC charging, and home charging.
Wow.
We also have partnerships like you've seen with General Motors for their workplace charging across North America, with Nissan Canada, who does a lot of our FLO Home. So the OEM relationships are really, really important. The nice thing of this is EV vans are just really becoming into a segment, right? So over here is kind of our old faithful Ram.
Yeah, this is what I saw in New York.
Right? Yeah.
And I was like, you guys got to get some EV vans.
That's what everybody says.
Yeah.
And now we have them, right?
Yeah.
So these are brand new into our fleet. We're literally going to be electrifying our whole service fleet, both in New York and LA and in Vancouver. But these are the first that we've taken delivery of. Again, the big benefit is every spare part of every charger that we have is inside.
That's so
right?
cool.
So we never send a tech out blind, regardless. We always make sure that you saw from Jan's stock index inside, that the stock is fully stocked on this truck.
And I love the idea that, you know, no longer do you have to bring a charger tester with you.
We don't need Shamel anymore. We've got the vehicle.
That's right. You got this thing. So it's so cool. Anyway, I'd love to see that. Guys, we're back out at the DC Fast, and Brooks is pulling a typical Hummer lifestyle move right here. Clogging up, icing the station at 100%. But this is what you can do when you have your own DC charger at work.
This is our own right now. This isn't open to the public right now because we're of course doing the filming, but also we're doing a lot of testing, right?
Yeah, but you've got a road trip though.
I've got a road trip back for about 850 kilometers. So
it you know, juiced up there. Love to see that.
Yeah.
And dude, I just have to say, first of all, congratulations on the whole company and all of your colleagues doing some incredible work.
Yeah.
In the US, FLO is not as known as it is in Canada. No way around it. And I think a lot of Americans really think of FLO as a level 2 provider, which you are in many ways.
We are, very much so.
But also I think we've shown the big, you know, Ultra in a couple videos at some of the shows and stuff.
Yeah.
But seeing it in use, learning about the engineering that went into it, the thoughtfulness, the reliability, this is a unit I'm really excited to see deployed everywhere because I love the form factor. I love the cable management.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool. When I first saw it, I'm like, you're really making a charger that's like like 1.5 parking spaces
I remember
wide?
your reaction at the first show that we released it to, and you're like, this is too big. It's just too big. It doesn't make sense.
Now it makes all the sense.
But when you're standing in front of it, it's not so big, right? It really isn't. And the concept in the design theory thinking that Vince went through, it just makes so much sense, right? And that's what we're really trying to get across, is how much sense it's making. And like even from the Easy Lift, when I unplug, right, it instantly activates and starts carrying the cable. Again, I'm one-handed, right? So the ease of accessibility, the ease of functionality is what the entire organization has been working on for the last 36 months where we're developing FLO Ultra. And that's like 568, almost 600 employees working on this thing, along with keeping everything else up and running in our field from our level 2 units of Core Plus Workplace. That's the new FLO Home that we're testing internally.
I'm excited to see Tom's review of the new FLO
Tom's
Home.
review is going to be really good. And then you've got the old faithfuls, right? We're testing out some kind of new color concepts, so you can see the color concept of FLO Ultra in this. So the reason why we turned this into gray and black was to make sure that the powder coating of the FLO Ultra was going to stand the test of time, right?
Cool.
So we always do different tests in different scenarios. Hydro-Quebec Electric Circuit wanted kind of a custom look and feel to the Smart DC. So this is kind of like V4 of Smart DC, where we're on V3 kind of more in the market. This is what you're seeing across Canada, in New York, in New Jersey, in Massachusetts right now. We've got a few in LA, but these are really old faithful. They work. every single time, right? And again, that comes into the mission critical aspect of FLO, where this is mission critical EV charging infrastructure, so we can get home at the end of the day to visit our family, because these things, when you plug in, they're going to work.
Well, Brooks, I can't thank you enough. Can't thank the colleagues enough for inviting us all the way here to Canada to showcase not only the new product, but so much more that I didn't even know we would have the chance to get into. I didn't know we'd be seeing the engineering labs. I didn't know we'd be seeing the network operations center. I didn't know we'd get to see all the old boys installed, which is awesome.
Yeah, the history is 15 years, right? 15 years of charging. Level 2 went in the ground in 2011. Old Faithful went in the ground in 2014. They still function and operate today. So the level of data that we have and the experience is really truly what I feel is unique to FLO, but also truly the best in the business.
Yeah, well, certainly I have always been a FLO fan, but even more now after getting to meet a lot of the people behind the products and the software. And really, congratulations on the launch of the Ultra. I can't wait to use it on a road trip one of these days, maybe even get one in Colorado.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Feel free to drop it off for a year of testing.
I'll drive it over.
Back. Yeah, I mean, throw it in the trunk. You got room, you get the convertible tops. And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to FLO for having us out here to Canada. And I'm sure there will be more coming.
There will.
Was so cool. So thanks again. We'll see you all in another one again soon. Bye-bye.